The sound of my father's fist pounding on my bedroom door jolted me awake at 6 a.m. "Rent's due today, Sophia." His voice carried that familiar mix of authority and disdain. $2,000 cash only. I stared at my ceiling, listening to my brother Marcus's carefree whistling from his rent-free room across the hall. The contrast was almost comical. My Harvard MBA and perfect credit score meant nothing in this house, while his 3 failed business ventures and mounting credit card debt were somehow endearing to our parents. "Be down in 5 minutes, I called back, already reaching for the envelope I'd prepared last night. $2,000. More than double what any reasonable landlord would charge for a tiny bedroom in suburban Boston. But my father had made it clear. If I wanted to stay in my childhood home while wasting time at my corporate job instead of joining the family business, I'd pay for the privilege. I pulled on my carefully pressed suit, a designer piece I'd bought secondhand but looked new. Appearances mattered in my world, just not in the flashy way my family preferred. Making my way downstairs, I found the usual morning scene. Mom fussing over Marcus's breakfast, Dad reading financial reports at the head of the table, and my brother sprawled in his chair, still in pajamas at 28. "Here's the rent." I placed the envelope next to my father's coffee cup. He didn't look up. "Cutting it close again, Sophia. In the real world, tardiness costs money." I bit back a smile thinking about the meeting I had scheduled for later that day. If only he knew what the real world had in store for his precious company, Harrison Electronics. "Leave your sister alone, dear," Mom chimed in, sliding a plate of eggs in front of Marcus. "She's doing her best, even if it's not quite what we hoped for." What they hoped for was for me to follow Marcus into Harrison Electronics, the family company my grandfather had built from nothing. What they got instead was a daughter who'd struck out on her own, working her way up through corporate America while quietly building something they couldn't begin to imagine. "Speaking of best," Marcus mumbled through a mouthful of eggs, "Dad, about that CEO position we discussed." I gathered my belongings, not needing to hear this conversation again. 4 months, our father had been grooming Marcus to take over as CEO of Harrison Electronics, despite his complete lack of qualifications. The company was struggling, bleeding market share to more innovative competitors, but tradition dictated that the eldest son would inherit the throne. What none of them knew was that while they'd been planning Marcus's ascension, I'd been orchestrating the most important business deal of my life. The mysterious holding company that had been quietly acquiring Harrison Electronics stock? That was mine. The anonymous investor their board was so eager to meet? Also me. "Don't forget," Dad called as I headed for the door. "Next month's rent is going up to $2,500. Market rates." I paused, adjusting my laptop bag. "Actually, Dad, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I might be making some changes soon." He finally looked up, eyes narrowing. "What kind of changes?" "Let's just say I'm exploring new opportunities." I smiled, thinking of the board meeting scheduled for next week where Harrison Electronics would learn the identity of their new majority shareholder. "More corporate ladder climbing?" Marcus snickered. "While I'm becoming CEO, you'll still be pushing papers and paying rent." If he only knew that the papers I pushed included the documents that would soon make me his boss. That every rent check I'd written had been a small price to pay for the front row seat to their company's vulnerabilities. "We'll see," I said softly, closing the door behind me. In my car, a modest Toyota that belied my true net worth, I checked my phone. A message from my assistant confirmed that everything was in place. Harrison Electronics stock had dropped another 3% overnight, making my takeover even more timely. I thought about my grandfather who'd built Harrison Electronics with a vision of innovation and excellence. He'd be disappointed to see what his son and grandson had done to his legacy. But soon, very soon, I would restore that legacy, just not in the way anyone expected. My phone buzzed again. "Ma'am, the board members have confirmed the meeting. They're eager to meet the mysterious investor who owns 51% of their company." I started my car thinking about how quickly things would change. My father's company was about to discover that the daughter they undervalued had quietly become their owner. And the rent? Well, soon they'd learn what market rates really meant. But first, I had a few more pieces to put in place. After all, the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about winning so completely that they never saw it coming. The next 3 days unfolded exactly as I'd planned. Harrison Electronics stock continued its steady decline, prompting emergency board meetings that my father and brother attended with increasing panic. From my corner office at Kingston Corp, where I was officially just another mid-level executive, I watched their desperation grow through carefully placed sources. "Miss Harrison?" My assistant Sarah's voice came through the intercom. "Your father's company just announced an emergency shareholders meeting for tomorrow morning. And..." She paused, suppressing a laugh. "Your brother has been calling every investment firm in Boston, trying to secure emergency funding." I smiled, remembering Marcus's words from breakfast just yesterday. "Real business people don't hide behind corporate jobs, Sophia. We take risks." If only he knew that while he was playing businessman, I'd spent the last 5 years building a network of holding companies and investment vehicles. Every bonus, every rent check I'd written, every dollar I'd saved had gone into slowly, quietly acquiring Harrison Electronics stock through various shell corporations. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. "Honey, your father's very stressed about work. Maybe you could skip this month's rent? Your brother needs to borrow money for a new investment opportunity." Before I could respond, Sarah appeared in my doorway, tablet in hand. "They've discovered the connection between your shell companies. Your father's assistant just sent a meeting request. They want to interview you for a senior position tomorrow morning." Perfect timing. I deliberately left a paper trail for them to find, knowing they'd try to hire me in a desperate attempt to understand the mysterious investor who now controlled their company. "Schedule it for 9 a.m., I replied. "And Sarah? Make sure all the documentation is ready. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." That evening, I arrived home to find my father waiting in the kitchen. The usual arrogance was gone from his posture, replaced by a calculating friendliness that set off warning bells. "Sophia, sweetheart," he began, his voice unnaturally warm. "Why didn't you tell us about your success at Kingston Corp?" I set my bag down, enjoying the moment. "You never asked." "Too busy planning Marcus's CEO announcement, I suppose." "About that." He cleared his throat. "We have an interesting opportunity at Harrison Electronics. A senior position reporting directly to the board. Much better than paying rent here." "Really?" I kept my voice neutral. "What changed?" "Nothing changed," Marcus interrupted, strolling in with his usual poor timing. "Dad's just trying to save you from corporate mediocrity. Though honestly, we should charge you more rent for wasting his time." I watched my father's face twitch at Marcus's words, knowing he was desperately trying to figure out if I was connected to the mysterious investor who now owned most of his company. "Actually," I said, pulling out my rent check, "I won't be paying rent anymore." "Now see here," my father started, his friendly facade cracking. "I've bought a new place," I continued calmly. "In fact, I'm moving out tonight." "Running away because you can't afford the new rent?" Marcus smirked. Typical Sophia, always taking the easy way out. I walked to my room, listening to them whisper urgently behind me. Within an hour, I'd packed my essential belongings into 2 small suitcases. I'd never kept anything valuable in this house anyway. As I carried my bags downstairs, my mother emerged from the living room. "Sophia, please, your father didn't mean to be harsh about the rent. We just want what's best for you." "I know exactly what you want," I replied, thinking of tomorrow's meeting. "And you're about to find out exactly what I want too." My father stepped forward, business mask firmly in place. "About tomorrow's interview." "Don't worry," I cut him off with a smile. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." As I drove away, I caught a last glimpse of them in my rearview mirror. My father already on his phone, probably calling his lawyers, my mother wringing her hands, and Marcus lounging against the doorframe, clearly assuming I'd come crawling back when my money ran out. In my new penthouse apartment, purchased through one of my holding companies 6 months ago, I reviewed the documents for tomorrow one final time. Everything was in order. Proof of ownership, restructuring plans, and most importantly, the termination papers for certain executive positions. My phone lit up with messages from family members. "Mom, please come home, we can work something out." Marcus, running away again? Some things never change. "Dad, let's discuss your future with the company." I left them all unread. Tomorrow they'd understand that I wasn't running away from anything. I was walking straight into my future, and their past. Sarah texted one last confirmation. "Everything's ready for tomorrow, Miss Harrison. The board members have all been quietly informed of your true identity." Only your father and brother remain in the dark. Perfect, I replied. Time to show them what corporate mediocrity really looks like. The Harrison Electronics headquarters lobby felt different that morning. Security guards who usually barely glanced at me now stood at attention. They'd been briefed about the real owner of the company. The receptionist who had dismissed me countless times jumped to her feet. Ms. Harrison. The board is waiting in the main conference room. I checked my watch. 8:55 a.m. Right on schedule. Through the glass walls, I could see my father pacing, his usual commanding presence diminished by anxiety. Marcus sat scrolling through his phone, probably checking the company's plummeting stock price. Neither looked up as I entered. They were waiting for the mysterious CEO they planned to interrogate. Sophia, my father said dismissively, the board has an important meeting. Your interview will have to wait. Actually, I set my briefcase on the table. The board is here to meet me. Before he could respond, the board members filed in, led by James Chin, my grandfather's oldest friend and most trusted advisor. The look on his face told me he'd been enjoying this secret as much as I had. Everyone please be seated, James announced. As you know, we're here to meet the majority shareholder of Harrison Electronics. He paused, smiling directly at me. Though it seems some of us already know her quite well. My father's face froze. Marcus dropped his phone. What is this? My father demanded, looking between James and me. I opened my briefcase, removing the documents I'd prepared. This is a meeting to discuss the future of Harrison Electronics. My company owns 51% of the shares, acquired over the last 5 years through various holding companies. Impossible, Marcus laughed, but his voice cracked. You can barely afford rent. About that, I slid the first document across the table. Here's a record of every rent check I've written. Exactly the amount needed to keep you from questioning where the rest of my money was going. While you were living rent-free and dreaming of being CEO, I was buying your inheritance right out from under you. The board members watched silently as I distributed the rest of the papers. You'll find a complete restructuring plan here. Harrison Electronics will be returning to its roots of innovation and excellence. The vision my grandfather had before it became a family trophy. My father stood up, his face purple. You can't do this. I'm your father. Yes, you are. The father who charged his daughter double market rate for rent while letting his son live free. The father who dismissed every achievement that didn't fit his narrow vision of success. I met his eyes steadily. The father who's about to learn that real business isn't about birthright. It's about strategy. Marcus lunged for the documents, scanning them frantically. This is a joke. You're nothing but a corporate drone. A corporate drone who now owns your company, I corrected him. Your position, by the way, has been terminated effective immediately. Though I hear the apartment above the garage is available for rent. The boardroom doors opened again. My mother rushed in, waving her phone. Sophia, what are these headlines? Harrison Electronics reveals hidden owner. What have you done? Created my own opportunity, I replied calmly. Since you were all so busy planning Marcus's future, I decided to plan my own. James Chin stood up, addressing the room. The board has already approved Ms. Harrison's restructuring plan. Under her leadership through her holding companies, we've seen more strategic vision than this company has had in years. My father sank into his chair, decades of certainty crumbling. All this time, the rent, the corporate job, was exactly what you taught me about business, Dad. Control the narrative, find the weakness, and never let them see you coming. The next hour was a blur of legal documents and shell-shocked family members. My mother crying about family loyalty. Marcus threatening lawsuits he couldn't afford. My father sitting in stunned silence as his company changed hands. As the board members filed out, James lingered. Your grandfather would be proud, he said quietly. He always said the quiet ones were the ones to watch. I gathered my things, pausing at the door. Dad, about the rent. He looked up, aged years and hours. Consider your last check a down payment on your new office space. I'm thinking something small, perhaps above the garage? Market rates, of course. Walking out of the boardroom, I heard my mother's voice. But where will you live now? I smiled, thinking of my penthouse overlooking the city. Don't worry about me. I own quite a bit of real estate these days. In fact, I turned back one last time. I own this building too. And yes, the rent is definitely going up. The next few weeks brought exactly the chaos I'd expected. Family members calling with desperate explanations and investment opportunities. Marcus trying to launch a rival company with no capital. My father alternating between threats and attempts at reconciliation. I focused on rebuilding Harrison Electronics, restoring my grandfather's vision of innovation and excellence. The stock price stabilized, then soared as investors recognized the changes. The company flourished under real leadership rather than entitled inheritance. 3 months later, I received a text from Marcus. The garage apartment is freezing. Can't afford the heating bill. I replied with a photo of my grandfather's original business plan, found in the company archives. Success isn't about being given opportunities. It's about creating them. By the way, rent's due tomorrow. Cash only. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about teaching them the lessons they should have learned all along. And sometimes, just sometimes, it comes with compound interest. Looking out from my office, the same one my father once occupied, I thought about family, legacy, and the true meaning of success. They wanted a CEO who would maintain their comfortable illusions. Instead, they got one who transformed their mediocre inheritance into something extraordinary. And the rent? Well, that was just the first installment in a much longer lesson about value, respect, and the real cost of underestimating the quiet one who watched, learned, and planned while they weren't paying attention. After all, in business as in family, you never truly know the worth of something until you have to pay for it yourself.